This video is for Chapter 7, which is about input validation, and we're doing program exercise 4 at the end of Chapter 7, which is going to validate some speed limits. The program's supposed to ask for the speed limit and the driver's speed and then verify that the speed limit is at least 20 but not greater than 70, and that the driver's speed has to be at least the value entered for the speed limit. And then we're supposed to calculate and display the number of miles per hour over the speed limit the driver was doing, assuming they were going over the speed limit. So I've started the program here with some variables that I've initialized to 0 and asked the user to input the speed limit. So the next thing I want to do is to set up my validation loop to be sure that I'm actually in that range of 20 to 71. So I'm going to pull in a loop control structure here. And my condition is that limit is greater than 19 and limit is less than 71, which would give me the range 20 to 70, assuming 70 is my top speed limit. If that is false, if the limit doesn't fall into that range, then I want to display a message to my user saying that it's an invalid speed limit. And then ask them to actually enter their speed limit again. So I'm going to copy that and paste it here at the bottom of my loop. So as long as they're entering an invalid speed limit, it's just going to keep circling through that code until they finally enter the valid speed limit. And of course, I could have prompted them in the input statement to tell them what the range was, but this does validate that I've got a good speed limit. If I don't have a good speed limit, then I need to call a function that's actually going to check to see if they are actually driving over the speed limit. And in this case, we're supposed to be driving over the speed limit. So I'm going to create a procedure here, and I'm going to call this procedure get speed, and it's being passed two parameters. First of all, it's being passed speed, which is two-way communication. It's coming in as 0 and it's going to go out as whatever value is input. So it is a reference parameter being passed in both directions. Limit is only a value parameter or one-way communication because I'm not going to change it or do anything with it. So I've set that up, and now I'm ready for my code, and I'm asking the driver now to input the speed that they're driving. So I want them to enter your driving speed. And I'm going to store that, of course, in speed, but I forgot to close my string here. There we go. And again, the same sort of thing. I'm going to use a loop to validate the input by checking to make sure that limit is less than or equal to speed. That was the parameter given to us in the problem statement. And the point is, it's supposed to calculate the number of the miles per hour over the speed limit that the user's going. So I want to first print out the message here telling them they're not going over the limit. Which is the whole point of this. So we'll do it with whatever the speed limit is that's been entered. And then again, I've got to ask them again, so I'm going to copy, because I'm using a secondary read to keep this loop going as long as they aren't driving over the speed limit. So now I'm validating that the speed limit is going to be greater than speed. So I'm going to go back to main because I need to call this now in the yes path of the main program. Remember, this is my validation for my range of speed limit. And once that's set, then I want to call get speed with my two parameters speed and limit. And then once that's been called and speed is passed back to the main program, at that point, because I'm validating that they are going over the speed limit in this loop in my procedure, then my next step is to actually print out how much over the speed limit they're going. I need to calculate that and then print it out. So I'm going to drag down an assignment box here and use my variable over the limit to calculate how much they're actually going over the speed limit. So it would be speed. I'm over the speed limit. Minus limit. Speed minus limit is the calculation, and then I want to print it out. So here's my output statement and labels. You are going over whatever over the limit is. Over the speed limit. So now I'll execute it, checking first that my validation loop for the speed limit works. So if I put in 15 and then I enter a speed limit it is invalid. So it's asking me again to enter the speed limit. I use 70. That's in my range. So now it's going to call my second function that asks me to input the driving speed. If I'm less than 70 in this validation loop here, it's going to ask again for my driving speed. So I'll put 67 in. It's inside that loop, so it's back up asking me. It's got to be over my speed limit of 70, so 78. And then it goes back to the main program to calculate, and it says I was going 8 miles over the speed limit. So 2 validation loops in here for this particular program.